for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Donahue. I'm here today in the lovely home of my sister with my family here, my son, my mom, my stepdad, my sister, her child, Drake. And we're here in Fort Scott. We're going to talk about some gardening. Now, gardening is a tricky business for just about anybody. I'm going to tell you a little story that happened to me last summer. I called my daughter, who is a budding gardener herself, and I wanted to find out how her projects were coming along and touch base with her. And she was obviously distressed, and she said, "Dad," she said, "my sweet peas are taking over my tomatoes, and on the other end of my garden, the fennel is laying siege to everything about it in a sort of plant-like coup d'etat." And so I noticed that I knew that she was obviously upset about the loss of her tomatoes, and I commiserated with her about those because they take a lot of effort, and you really never want to see your hard work and the fruit of your labor go down the tubes. So what she didn't do was, she didn't do what most of us would realize as probably one of the most important tasks in life if you ever want to have anything come out correct, and that is do your research, do your homework. And she didn't, and she paid the price. If she had talked to some people, she would have realized that there are plants that don't thrive well together. Now, when I started gardening, I got into discussions with people who had been doing the planting and farming for a long time. And not only that, I got into books. Before I ever picked up a shovel, I was reading books on how to do it and when to do it and why to do it. Every book that you will get about gardening generally includes three different things. It's know your limits, first of all. Now, this isn't just your physical limits, it's the limits of your land, your climate, things like that. Understand the garden types, the three types of gardens that there are, and choose the one that's best for you. And then finally determine what the garden needs itself and map the garden out. So we'll talk about know your limits first. Before you plant anything into the soil, you have to know what is the soil content and if it's beneficial for plants at all. The pH is really important with that, and fortunately for us here in Kansas, we've tested the soil. You can get a simple test kit from just about any garden center, and you test the pH, and right around here it's 6.5. So that pretty much indicates that just about any kind of flowering vegetable or flowering plant can survive in it as long as it's got proper drainage. So you also have to worry about climate. The climate is the weather, the dryness, the aridness of the air. If you don't have the proper climate, you can't grow the correct plants. For example, you can't take a basil that's used to being on the side of a mountain in the nice, cool, moist air and put it in Las Vegas and expect it to thrive. It will not. So you have to pay attention to your climate, and then finally, what your personal limitations are is pretty important. If you, for example, have a full-time job, you may not want to have a garden that requires a full-time investment in it. Something like a garden for beauty would definitely require a whole lot more investment than, say, a garden for utility. Now, speaking of gardening for beauty, we'll get into the garden types. We'll start with gardening for beauty. Right now here we have a small garden designer's handbook by Roy Strong, and it talks about all the necessities for planting gardens for beauty. And one of the things it stresses is that gardening for beauty requires a lot of monetary investment and a lot of time and a lot of maintenance. For example, one of the things that it requires that another garden may not is paving. You don't think about the sidewalks that you actually have to put in and the structures you had to build to have a garden for beauty, and these are some of the things you really need to consider. Next is utility, which is my favorite because I'm a utilitarian. I just want to eat it. So I put what I want to eat, and that's it. I don't care how it looks, pretty much. I mean, as long as I can put it in my mouth, I'm happy. And then you have the third kind, which is the multifunctional garden, which It's generally the favorite for most people because it is both pretty and edible. Cooks love them. So each one has its own requirements. The utility garden requires the least upkeep. Really, the maintenance on it is very minimal compared to the other two, so that's something to consider if, like I said, you are a full-time worker. Now, the next step is, what will your garden require itself? The first step, according to Rodell's Successful Organic Gardening Landscaping Perennials, is a very wise first step, and I think all the books kind of echo this, is you want to get in your mind what you have for a landscape. So you start off with taking a pen and pencil and paper, and you draw out a site map, top down, of your property. And then you take and you draw out a plot map later on of the garden once you decided its shape and function. So here you see a site map. Here's the proposed raised bed. It's on a back fence. And so when you take and you copy this out, you can add things to it or move things around with your pencil and paper, and it just gives you a way to get an idea of the different kinds of structures you can put in your yard. Once you determine the structure, you can draw out the structure and start playing with the kinds of plants that you might want in it. Now you notice over here, I had the fennel way far away from everybody else because it does not get along with other plants, and that's called plant interdependence. And that really is one of the main causes for gardens to go south. Now this book here, it's the Vegetable Gardener's Bible. It's by Edward C. Smith. Now this is a super good resource, and you'll find other ones out there like that. When it comes to the time when you finally are choosing the plants for your garden, you've decided what shape it is, you've decided, you fixed the soil pH, you've done all that, and you're going and you're deciding which plants to put next to each other. This is the resource. See, it has a specific section down at the bottom where it talks about how much watering they need, the pH, the nutrient requirements, and most importantly, the good and bad companions. Because plants do have good and bad companions, as well as my daughter found out with the fennel. So when you're planning out, you're pre-planning your garden, you want to put plants together that work well together, and that resource there will help you. Here you might notice that I don't know if you can read this, but I've started off with some peas. Notice I put the tomatoes all the way at the other end of the garden so that they could not fight with each other. And I also stress the importance of putting flowers in between the different plants, flowers that are multi-purpose, multifunctional. And there are a lot of them out there. They're the hat trick of the garden, and these are things like mint and marigold. And these are plants that you can eat, but they're also great about keeping pests away, and they're also good for hedging other plants apart from each other. So if you see here, if you do it properly, when you begin your garden, you will know before you even put the shovel into the soil how your garden is going to come out at the end of the year. I mean, if you plan it out right, the only things that you have to worry about are things that are out of your control, like bad weather. But you can pretty much guarantee what kind of success you're going to have as long as you take the steps of pre-planning and knowing your limits, understanding the garden types, and determining the needs of the garden itself. My name is Michael Donahue. Thank you very much.